Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Alex King and Bill G. Today is Tuesday, July the 2nd, 2019. It is 8 a.m. in New York, 5 a.m. Los Angeles, 1 p.m. London, 10 p.m. Sydney, and 9 p.m. in Tokyo. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And Alex and I are happy because we had another good recording session with our cast from The Grass is Greener last night. We had the kids going at it, duking it out. They were having a good time. We were having a good time. And we got some good.
It was hilarious.
It was. It was great. It was great. You never know when you're working with kids how it's going to work out because they're kids. Mm-hmm. They don't have a lot of experience like an adult actor has. But these kids were great.
Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame. They're definitely professional. They're definitely, especially Aiden. I can't handle that kid. He's too much.
Aiden is funny. He's a funny guy. Yeah. He has a natural wit, a natural sense of humor, and that's useful in a romantic comedy. I mean, you need that. So, yeah, we're excited about that. And Bill is absolutely brimming over with excitement because of the success he had at the dowsing conference he went to. Bill, I mean, why don't you tell people as much as you care to tell? I mean, you just hit a home run. You hit a grand slam, 2 of them.
Yeah. It was a grand slam. First of all, it was the American Society of Dowsers National Convention. It's actually their 59th annual convention. They've been doing this since 1961.
Wow.
So they've been doing this for a very, very long time. And the people there were great. The other healers were great. I did my talk on clearing writer's block, which was extremely well received. They live streamed the entire event, which was great. And then afterwards, some people started to sign up to get SRT sessions, and the next thing I knew, I was booked solid for 2 days.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, it was busy. I mean, I felt when you're doing energy work, you know, you're kind of energizing your whole body because all that energy is coming through. By the end of the day, I felt like I put my hand in a light socket because all the cells are just going nutso. So they had I didn't catch the keynote address because I was just so exhausted I had to go back to my hotel room and just crash. But anyway, it was a great conference.
That is great. Fabulous. Awesome. Yeah. That just shows what happens when you manage to keep yourself in the vortex. Both of our stories, because as things happen all the time, but to whatever degree we can stay in that better, higher vibration place, the good feeling place, things happen even without our planning to do so. They just kind of happen.
Right. Yeah, well, I went there with the intent, I went there with a very strong intention to, number one, give a really good talk, and number two, to meet some new clients, to drum up some new clients. And so, I hit a grand slam on that one. That was great. I mean, it doesn't always happen that way. So, you know, you don't always hit a grand slam, but when you do, it feels great.
Oh yeah, it definitely feels great. You were almost doing what the Red Sox and the Yankees were doing in London. Let's put it that way. So,
all right.
They scored 50 runs in 2 games between the two teams. It was crazy.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was insane. But I'm not sure. It was more like cricket than baseball. But anyway,
right.
But Bill, you came up with an interesting topic for the day, the topic of bullies, which of course is a very timely topic that's gotten a lot of attention over the last few years. Mm-hmm. And so we figured we'd come at it from a law of attraction perspective, which I think is a good idea. However, before we get into that, I want to make sure I get our promos in, because our promos, as one of our listeners had reminded us, they aren't something to get out of the way. They are something to feature. In fact, she wants us to do them twice a day. I'm not sure if I can pull that off, Alex. But she wants us to do it twice a day. I'll go for once for now. But basically the message is this. This is a great podcast that you get different shows every day, 5 days a week. Every show has a different topic, has different co-hosts. It just has a different feel every time. So you're getting a wide variety of entertainment on the topic of law of attraction every single day, 5 days a week. And in order to do that, all you have to do is become a subscriber. The subscription is really easy to do. Go to loatoday.net. Right at the top of the page, you will see instructions and a little thing to click on for becoming a subscriber. And once you're there, you share, like you would anything else that you like, on social media. So subscribe and share. And also consider subscribing to us on YouTube, where we live stream our podcast recordings as we're recording them. And you can actually see what we look like, because the podcast obviously is audio only, but when we live stream the video onto YouTube, you actually see us. So it's a cool thing. And I always like to turn this part over to Alice, because she always explains it better. So Alice, tell people how to subscribe and how to notify.
Okay, so basically you go to YouTube and you search LOA Today podcast videos. Once you've done that, you hit the subscribe button, and next to the subscribe button there's a little bell, and once you hit that, you will be notified every time we go live.
And it's just that simple. See, you said it like in a time about half of what I would have said. I would have taken it in the next 5 minutes. Not because I'm a bully or anything like that, just because I'm long-winded is what it is.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
That's right. Exactly, which is the way we like it. So, but bullying is definitely a good topic to talk about. It usually gets talked about in terms of like the school playground or kids on social media or something like that. But, Bill, it was occurring to me, actually bullying occurs in a wide area of aspects of human life. It occurs in adult life. It occurs in the workplace. It occurs in politics. It occurs in the entertainment field. It occurs everywhere. It's all over the place, and it's largely unrecognized.
Mm.
I mean, that's my first thought coming into it. But why don't you tell people what your thought was? What brought up the topic, and where were you thinking about going with it?
Well, what brought up the topic is, first of all, I read a blog every week, and it came up as the topic of my blog last week. And the focus of the blog was on when you're in a bullying situation, either as the antagonist or the victim. And so it's either or. What is the situation teaching us about ourselves? Because again, the people that we interact with are mirrors of what is going on inside of us. Mm-hmm. And the idea that what Spirit was telling me was this is a internal problem as opposed to an external problem. All right. And it always is an internal problem rather than an external problem. And people who feel victimized by others are generally not addressing their own feelings of inadequacy or whatever. What Spirit came up with was unworthiness. So people feel unworthy of being heard, or maybe feel unworthy of being listened to. And so they feel as though either they need to be told what to do by someone who they perceive as being stronger than themselves, or they are the ones who are telling other people what to do in order to make up for a feeling of unworthiness within themselves. And so, again, it doesn't matter if you are the antagonizer or the victim. There's a energetic lesson to be learned that you need to be addressing. You need to be understanding what it is that you're doing and why it needs to be cleared. And once it's cleared, then we can actually address what it is you're actually lacking.
Yeah, that's very important, because until you address it, you aren't going to get any. I mean, it's a nice thing to name it, to identify what's going on. Certainly, to be honest enough, if you're the bully, to admit that you're doing the bullying, that's always a good thing. And if you're the victim, to admit that you're a victim, that's probably even harder for some people. I mean, victimhood is fairly rampant in society, and not just here in the U.S., really across the world. Victimhood's a big deal. There's a lot of it.
Right, and all of it creates these it creates an imbalance within you, and then that prevents you from really getting in touch with your own emotions. I mean, we're going into this period of history where this whole ascension thing. I mean, Linda Armstrong talks about this sometimes, but it's something I believe very strongly too, that we are moving into this period of expansion, energetic expansion, where we're moving out of what they call the divine masculine and into the divine feminine. And the divine feminine is all about feelings. And so, being the receiver of feelings and being able to express your feelings in a more positive manner. And the bullying is more yang, whereas being being someone who's more a giving person is more yin. So we need to reduce our yang and do more of our yin.
Yeah, I think it pretty much describes everybody, not just in terms of bullying either, in terms of a lot of stuff. But it definitely is something that needs to be looked at. It has to be understood. It has to be recognized, and it has to be addressed. And I mean, Alex, as I think about it, there are so many times in just everyday life where it kind of crops up, but nobody really calls it that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it family dynamic relationships. We'll call it, problems with friends. We'll call it a bad boss. We'll call it a variety of things, but we won't call it bullying. Why do you think that is?
I think because we mainly associate bullying with school age.
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's playground only. That's the only place a bully ever, actually lives, right?
Right.
Well, now on the internet with cyberbullying and stuff like that, so.
Right.
Well, and I also want to ask you something else, because we talked about trolling the other day, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
To what degree do you think trolling falls in the category of bullying?
I don't think it's separate. I would say trolling is like just someone who has a lot of free time and nothing else to do but, bother people. Whereas bullying is people targeting certain people, on a personal level. Whereas they're like, attacking their personal appearance or, whereas trolling is like, oh, you spelt this wrong and that makes you an idiot, so it's in the same category, but bullying is to a further extent.
It's more extreme?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I understand as far as trolling is concerned is that the person who is doing the trolling, now we're assuming that we're talking about an individual and not a trolling company.
Yes.
We're not talking professional trolls, because there are plenty of those out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about someone who just trolls for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who do it, and because it's a energetic exchange, they're goading you into responding.
Yep.
And that's what a bully wants. The bully is looking for the response. They're looking for you to either get angry. They're looking for you to have some kind of emotional response to them, and they just suck that up. It's an energetic imbalance going on. And you generally know that you're in a situation like that. If you're in touch with your own feelings, if you feel that feeling in your gut, around your solar plex, you feel kind of drained there, you got a stomach ache or whatever after the exchange, you've just been bullied. You've just been trolled. Because on a physical level, you actually feel that energetic exchange. Another symptom is you feel tired afterwards, or you feel sad, or, you've got these really low vibration emotions going on. Then you know that somebody, and you think to yourself, wait a second, I was feeling fine about an hour ago. What the heck happened here? And you have this exchange with somebody, and it could be an innocuous thing. You could be work at a cash register at a grocery store, and a customer comes by and talks to you for a little bit, and then they leave, and you're like, oh, ouch, what just happened there? And then you think back, it's like, oh wow, that person was like angry at something, or they just wanted to. They just took my energy. What the heck's up with that?
Yeah. In fact, another area where this shows up and I don't think it initially would fall into the category of bullying, certainly not in most people's minds, but it does still show up there, and it kind of makes me wonder if sometimes there is some bullying involved. Very often we as humans will have an experience, a negative experience we don't like. Let's say somebody who's on meds, and all of a sudden you mentioned depression. Okay, so all of a sudden they find themselves in depression. They say, wait a minute, I was fine an hour ago. What happened? And then they blame it on the meds. Oh, it must be something with the meds. I'll have to call the doctor to find out, is there something else about the meds that are doing this? The two things that they will never consider are, is this something that I've been thinking about and focusing on that's making me feel sick? And is there somebody that I'm either trying to draw energy from unsuccessfully through bullying, or is there somebody who's trying to bully me into drawing my energy away to them? Is there a situation like that that's going on? Because Louise Hay, for instance, wrote about sickness as a metaphor. Right? So, like, if for instance you mentioned a stomach ache, if you have a stomach ache, it means you can't stomach something. Bullying would definitely fall in that category, I think.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Right. And what's even more interesting is bullying can happen even long after an energetic exchange has taken place, because then it turns into your negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you've got your negative self-talk going, and now you're still giving energy to that other person, even though the relationship is over or the exchange is over. And you find this in romantic relationships as well, post-divorce situations or whatever. The energetic exchange continues until you address the issue on an internal level.
So let me ask a question that kind of gets to the heart of it from my perspective, because I buy into what Abraham talks about. Abraham says that all illness is caused through our thought process. It's not stuff we pick up, not diseases, it's not all that kind of thing. It's all thought process that's the originator of it, which we almost never think about. Very few of us actually say, geez, I wonder if I made myself sick by thinking about some stuff that I didn't really like very much, which would be a nice thing if we actually started to do that. But usually we attribute it to something outside of ourselves. And in the process of doing it, we basically set ourselves up to fail. So, I guess the first question is, how do we detect that we are actively doing that? Well, I guess the first question is, do you guys agree with that? Do you think that we do make ourselves sick? And as a corollary of that, do you think and this is starting to get into really hot and heavy stuff, do we attract bullying? Do we attract being a bully? Do we attract being bullied? And if so, what can we do about that?
Well, the answer. Whoa, we're getting some feedback. I'm sorry. The short answer to that is yes, we do attract it to ourselves, because on somewhere we have an unconscious need to either we have this paradigm that we need to get energy from other people, or because we have a lack within ourselves. And victimhood works the same way. Too often you run into situations where people who are the victims of bullies become bullies themselves. The kid who's picked on at school then comes home and picks on his little brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a food chain.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I do when I'm with a client and they're dealing with bully situations, and I'm being someone who has been bullied in my past, and I've got a pattern of it in my past, where it started out on the schoolyard, and then it continued through high school, and then it continued through college, and then it continued in my first job, and then my second job, and then my third job. It was a recurring pattern in my life, until I was like, okay, maybe this isn't everybody else. Maybe this is me. Maybe I'm the one who's attracting all this into my life. And so
that's a tough realization, by the way.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is. And so what I do with a client who is having these sort of situations is we go through their past lives, because usually these past life situations is where it all started, because we have recurring patterns that happen lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And until we can investigate it and clear it, and usually these ideas are coming out, these patterns are born from soul lessons, experiential lessons that we have to have in order to inform the soul. But then, once we've informed the soul, we don't need to repeat them anymore. And so we clear it.
Try to convince your subconscious mind of that, so
that's
where
true. Right. Well,
it likes to hang on to things.
That's the cool thing about SRT too. When the client and whatever we clear these things, what we're doing is we are increasing the dialogue between the subconscious and your soul. And so when we've cleared things from the soul, it is remarkable how the subconscious then starts to adapt a new pattern.
And ultimately, that's a good thing, because when you can adapt a new pattern, basically you're teaching yourself two things. First of all, you're teaching yourself a new pattern. Second of all, you're teaching yourself you can change it.
That's right.
You know, that alone is a big breakthrough, because if you can come to that realization, you can not only, you know, take control of your own mind going forward, but you can also eliminate any tendencies you might already have toward either being a bully or toward being a victim.
Mm-hmm. Another interesting tactic that people use is if you see a therapist or whatever, they'll sometimes want to take you back in time and in your mind through either hypnosis or through some other process where you get to go back and meet your past self who is being victimized, and you then appear to yourself as an adult. What do you say as an adult to that child who is being bullied? And there's a great deal of merit to that, because, and again, that goes along with what we do in SRT and other therapies as well, is that if you can go back in time and fix something, at least fix the emotions of something, you've now fixed the emotions of everything that happened at that moment and everything that happened since. Your attitudes and feelings about all of that changes from that point forward. And it's rather remarkable, and I've seen it happen with my own clients, and I've also seen it happen with, there was a great scene in Suits. Do you watch that at all, Alex?
Nope.
No, you didn't see Suits? Okay. Well,
I mean, I'm aware of it, but I'm not a fan.
One of the lawyers there, was seeing a doctor, because he and his wife wanted to have a baby, so they went to go see this fertility specialist. Mm-hmm. And the fertility specialist happened to be this lawyer's tormentor in high school.
Oh, jeez.
Every day this other kid would walk this boy to the equipment locker in the gymnasium and lock him in there for an hour.
Oh, God.
Plus extort him for homework and whatever. And so the psychiatrist he was seeing took him back in time to see himself. You know, with movies you could actually have the scene where he's right. Talking to himself, where he came to the realization that he's just, instead of exacting revenge on this person, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to destroy him, and he's a high-powered lawyer. He can find a way to destroy this guy.
Sure.
But at the same time, he really wanted to have a baby. He wanted to make a family, and this guy was the best. And so if he destroys him, or he decides to leave him, or tell him what he really thought of him and whatever in front of his wife, then chances of that happening were slim to none. Mm-hmm. And so he had to convince his younger self that the revenge wasn't as important as being a father to this, to a new child, and to teach that new child to respect others and be a better person.
Yeah, and that's an interesting little sequence there, because, or at least it is to me, because I have never had to go to somebody about a fertility situation, but I have come face to face with a former bully,
right,
at a school reunion, and the thing I like about what you're talking about is, I mean, you described a method. There are a number of methods, but you described a method for basically coming to terms with it internally and getting yourself to the point where it just doesn't have any charge anymore. It doesn't even affect you anymore. Right. That's what I had essentially done before I went to my 40th high school reunion, and saw there's a group of 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 kids who all bullied me. And 2 of them were there. One of them I had a long conversation with. He was very much the same person he was as a kid, but he was grown up. He was matured and so forth. And we didn't even have to talk about any of it, partly because he wasn't one of the main instigators, but partly because, he had shifted his own mindset enough that it didn't even come up in conversation, any of the stuff that might be associated with that. Mm-hmm. The other one, who was one of the main instigators, was there. And speaking of Lawyersville, he was a lawyer. He had become a lawyer. And I remember greeting him. I offered my hand, said hello. We shook hands. He had absolutely nothing to say to me or to anybody else. This guy, for whatever reason, you could just tell, just being there was eating him up. Mm. Just being there. I mean, he, and this was not a guy who in school was quiet. He was not quiet at all in school, but he was at the reunion. He wasn't saying anything to anybody. And
why did he go?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. I think it actually ties into the same kind of psychology that's involved in bullying and victimhood. Mm. You go because of familiarity. You go because that's what you always do, you know? I think that may have been the case with him, but he was not a happy character, and he was very overweight. He was just, you could just tell. I mean, if I had seen him on the street and not seen a name tag, I wouldn't have known it was the same kid I knew.
Right.
That's how much he had changed. So I guess my point is, when you do the work on yourself and you get it out of the way in yourself, you start seeing things in an entirely different viewpoint. Mm-hmm. With the people you were interacting with negatively in the past. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had no more animus toward this guy. I actually could care less about the guy. He just was not even a part of my thought process. But when I ran into him, it was a completely different scenario, because any past bullying was gone, and here was this lonely shell of a person left behind.
Yeah.
I actually had a similar situation at my 10th anniversary, at 10th reunion, where I had one of my tormentors who had actually at one point, he and a friend of his actually, I had a paper route at the time, and they not only stopped me, but they busted my bike and they beat me up. And I mean, it was an incident I will never ever forget. Mm. And at the 10th, I mean, to the point where they actually were hitting me with sticks. I mean, it was,
wow.
It was nasty. And, at the 10-year anniversary, reunion, he came to me and he sat down and he said, that incident had been eating him up for his entire life.
Really?
After that. He felt so terrible.
Wow.
And ironically, he became a prison guard after that.
So he beats people with sticks for a living now. Great.
Yeah. But he felt so bad about that, and he just wanted to let me know how sorry he was. Mm-hmm. And it was empowering, but at the same time, while he was giving me his apology, I was still afraid that he was going to turn around and do something to me.
So I was still some programming there.
I was still in that victim thing, and so I walked away from the incident feeling as though the apology was empty. Mm-hmm. That he wasn't really situation. Sorry, and if he was sorry, I was glad he was sorry. I was glad he was feeling bad about it, because what he did was wrong. Mm-hmm. And you know, this is 20 years ago, so this is a long time ago. And since then, you know, I can care less at that point because I've done a lot of internal work on this stuff. But it's just interesting that this keeps coming up over and over again. And when very recently, I was on jury duty, and the defendant was a bully. And the whole idea and the whole incident that was surrounding what was going on in the trial was that he pushed another guy. It was a simple assault case. Mm-hmm. And my knee-jerk reaction, put him away, man. He was a bully. You know, because during the trial, they were talking about the kind of language he was using. The guy, you know, terrible foul mouth. I mean, homophobic. I mean, everything you can imagine. The worst thing this guy just says in its normal, everyday vernacular made me just want to say, guilty, put this guy away. In the end, though, we had to acquit him because nobody saw it.
Insufficient evidence.
Insufficient evidence to convict. We have to convict beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, so I left there again feeling victimized again. I felt victimized again. I felt like this guy has just gotten away with being a bully again. And during the trial, he was just lounging there, yawning. It's like, oh, this is the most boring thing in the world. Because he knew there was insufficient evidence. His lawyer already told him there was insufficient evidence. There was no way they were going to convict him.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, well, when you're a defendant in a case, you don't come dressed in ripped jeans and a hoodie. You know, the fact that he was just his dress was being disrespectful of the process of the court.
Good thing. What were you going to say, Alex?
I was going to say, it sounds to me like Bill needs to do a little more work. Because if you're feeling victimized by something that has nothing to do with you.
Yes. Well, again, I've been doing internal work, and that's another reason why the blog came up.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the blog came up because I'm dealing with these things on an internal level.
Right.
And so Spirit just has a way of putting it out. And so I put it out on a blog. And then I was like, you know, this is something we should talk about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
Now, I'd like to say from my point of view, because I never got to answer the initial question.
That's true. We kind of knocked you out of that, didn't we? Sorry about that.
A little bit.
I really honestly did not mean to bully you. Truly.
I feel like Bill's the bully in this case.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how to take this. I've never been bullied in my life.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a couple of incidents, but it was one and done. It was never an ongoing situation. It was never, oh, that person hates me, and I'm like, and I feel some way about it. I've been canceling people since I was born, so it's not. It was never really an issue. If you have a problem with me, you're not on my radar, then I don't have an issue with you. But I did go through an incident where this one girl, for some reason, did not like me, and I was best friends with her twin sister. So it was awkward because it was like I would come to the house, or I was only hanging out or swimming in the pool, you know, whatever. And she just did not like me. So one day, she was beatboxing on the locker next to mine. And I was like, could you please stop? I have a headache. I don't know what she was going through that day or what happened, but she flipped out, punched me in the face, knocked me down, and then continuously kicked me in my chest and my stomach to the point where the teachers had to pull her off. And it turned into this whole big thing. And I was like, I'm not pressing charges. You know, it turned into that big of a thing. Like, I'm not pressing charges, you know, because I didn't want to hurt, you know, break up the family. I was thinking of that. And then my family was like, well, you know, yeah, let the kids work it out, whatever. But the school had something against her. So they were like, oh, here's a chance that we can get her arrested and get her expelled. So they pressed charges on my behalf, which ended up breaking up our friendship, because then her mother was like, nope, you can't be a part of my family anymore because what you did to my daughter. So that was heartbreaking that I lost a friend over that.
A whole lot of victimhood going on there.
Yeah.
Seriously, it is a lot of victimhood going on there. Yeah. And well, yours was more like you were truly being victimized by a physical assault, but there was also the mom who was she was treating herself like a victim over something that you did nothing on, but you were like somehow the cause of it, which is a victim perspective.
Yeah.
You know? And then there's the school that, you know, the school administrators were also acting like victims, and we're going, my God, we're going to fight back. I think everybody's victimizing here. Wow.
Yeah. You make a good point. So, I mean, years later, I became friends with the girl, not the bully, her sister, but the other sister. And, you know, we're still cool now, and everybody's cool on Facebook now, so it doesn't matter. Didn't see them at the reunion, so that never came up, but, that was my only incident, except for one time, and this goes to what Bill was saying, because I actually had the person apologize to me. around Facebook, there's every once in a while there's these things like, in my comments, post a memory that you have of me, or like the first time we met or whatever. So recently, a friend of mine had posted it, so I was like, I'm gonna mess with him because I know there's something in our past that he regrets deeply, and I'm like, I'm gonna pull his ball hairs and I'm gonna remind him. So he said, post a memory.
Remind me never to get you mad at me.
Facts. You do not want to be on my bad side. So, there was an incident where we hadn't seen each other in like 2 or 3 years, and I ran into him, and his first words out of his mouth were, "Alex, you got fat." And I was like, I laughed it off at the time. I didn't really care. I was like, whatever. And then, later on it ate at me. And so on the post, I put, it was like, what was the quote that you remember me saying to you or whatever? And I put in quotation marks, "Alex, you got fat." And he was like, he put tear faces. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I think about that all the time. I'm so sorry." He's like, "Every time we see each other, I want to apologize." I was like, "I'm just pulling your ball hairs. It's fine. I don't care." But yeah, like I don't subscribe to bullying. I don't. I mean, I see it happening in the world. I see, cyberbullying pushing kids to commit suicide and how bad it can be. But in my personal life, I don't allow it.
Well, it makes a big difference. The the mindset makes a huge difference, even if it's accidental.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of that. When Louise was quite a bit younger, she was working at a facility. I can't remember exactly what kind of facility it was, but it was a facility that kids were involved with. It may have been kids who were in the system, so to speak. I can't remember exactly what it was all about. But anyway, she got called in to the supervisor's office, and the supervisor was known as a bully. He always tried to intimidate the staff, particularly the women's staff. And apparently what happened is she goes in, he's sitting at his desk, he invites her to sit down in the chair opposite the desk. It's the typical situation where the chair on the other side is lower. Yeah, all that kind of thing. And he's playing with a knife. He's picking his fingernails with a knife. And Louise never made the connection. She didn't realize that he was trying to intimidate her.
Right.
Intimidated, and so it didn't work.
Exactly.
And he kept trying to do it, and he wasn't getting a rise out of her, and he was defeated because his tactic didn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And later on, one of her coworkers said, "Well, did he have the knife out?" And she thought about it. She says, "Yeah, he did. It was weird. He was cleaning his fingernails with it." And her friend had to explain to her that he was trying to intimidate her. How thoroughly Louise accidentally had managed to just block out of her mind, just not even go to the place of I'm being bullied. And because she didn't, she wasn't.
Yeah. It was the same situation with the girl who picked me because she was a bully to everybody else but me. Because I wouldn't subscribe to her bullying. It was like, I think it was because my sister was like that growing up, so it was like, I just don't put up with that type of attitude. Like, if you ignore it, it's just like, it doesn't faze you. So it's like, you can bully everybody else, and everybody else is scared of you, but not this one.
So, Bill, I think this kind of shows there are a lot of different ways to deal with bullying. I mean, SRT is certainly one way to deal with it.
Yes.
To deal with it. Another way is just simply to adopt the mindset that says, I'm indifferent to what you're trying to do. Do your worst. I don't really care.
Yeah.
There are lots of different ways to do it. Is there a best one, or is it just really individual? What do you think?
I think it is. I think it's very individual. I think that it's important to understand that there's an energetic exchange happening every time that you're communicating or having any kind of interaction with another person. And when one person is assuming a position of power over you and trying to exert power over you, and power is very interesting because the definition of power is just simply trying to get somebody to do something that they would not ordinarily do. And because that's just the very definition of power when it comes to personal interactions. And Some people choose intimidation as their tactic to get people to do what they want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Other people use persuasion. Some people use victimhood. Some people, use the poor me tactic. And James Redfield, that if you've read the Celestine Prophecy series,
Oh yeah.
His advice would be to name the tactic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to name the tactic, this person is trying to intimidate me, then you have the ability then to say, I'm not going to subscribe to that. That person is trying to intimidate. I know that person is trying to intimidate me. I do not subscribe to being intimidated.
That's a big deal.
And now that connection, that energetic connection between the two solar plexuses or whatever has been cut off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the intimidator is going to feel defeated. And the intimidatee is going to feel empowered. And so that is a tactic that you can do. And just speaking strictly for myself, naming the tactic wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
What I needed to do is I needed to examine my other past lives. And all those other past lives where I was the victim, or that I was the bull, or I was the instigator.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of past lives where I was the big time instigator.
Mm-hmm.
The Gestapo, whatever. That's the way to in past lives I was a police officer, a secret police officer, or interrogator, or whatever. That was my job, and so this was a way of me working out all those past live things, was to have a lifetime where at some point I would see the pattern and work to clear it. And now that I've worked to clear it, it doesn't mean that it's 100% clear. And this is something I tell my clients all the time. We can go into those soul files. We can pull the file out. We can throw it in the fire. But the second I turn my back, you can pull that right out of the fire, dust it off, and put it back in. That's your choice. Now, it's diminished for being in the fire because we burned it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a choice. You can either leave it in the fire or you can put it back in the file. And it's done unconsciously, which is why repeat sessions are often required, especially for the really deep stuff. The recurring patterns that you see over many, many lifetimes. You have to have recurring sessions in order to pull that file out of the file cabinet again, put it back in the fire. We're going to burn it a little bit. You may put it back in, or there's other layers of it. There's a file A, a file B, a file C, and it goes all the way. Keeps going on and on because there are other layers to this issue. And then
Alex was shaking her head there. I got to find out what the shake of the head was all about. What were you thinking of when you were shaking your head there, Alex?
Which part?
Well, just where he was talking about pulling the files out of the fire and burning them and putting them back in the filing cabinet and burning them again and so forth. At that point, you were kind of giving a shake of the head, and I was curious.
No, because I feel like at that point you're just looking for attention. Like you're subconsciously or consciously. Like I just feel like it's something. It's the victimhood that you can't let go because it gets you attention.
Mm.
Where it's like, oh, poor me, this is what's going on, I can't help it, and then Bill's like, well, here's how we fix it, and you're like, but I don't want to fix it because that's what I'm known for. So then without the victimhood, who am I? Like, what do I do now?
It's a great point. Yeah,
it is an excellent point, and that's again why we have to often revisit this, because then we're like, okay, well, why do you keep coming back to this? Mm-hmm. And it's also because there's a fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
If we get rid of this thing that is a fundamental piece of who I think I am,
right?
Who am I after that?
Exactly.
And a lot of people are like, I don't want to know who I am after that because I'm afraid that if I'm something else, I do something else, I'm going to not be who I have been all my life.
But that's the whole point of life is to grow and change. And people just need to know it's okay to be okay.
Yes.
It really is.
Point too.
and it's okay to grow, and it's okay to change, and then it's okay to want to be a better person.
Yeah, it's like this meme I saw. It was a caterpillar talking to a butterfly, and the caterpillar goes, "You've changed," and the butterfly goes, "You're supposed to."
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. Exactly. I think there's another point too, and that is that when we are faced with change and we resist it, what we're really saying is, I don't want to experience the rest of life. I just want the little bit I've already had. We're basically we're rejecting a lot of opportunities out of fear, and to me that's something that's worth remembering. That's worth kind of bringing to mind when we're feeling in that comfort zone mentality. You know, the comfort zone mentality, we'll find all kinds of ways to justify staying there. The challenging part is to find the reasons to leave, and for me that's the best one. That there's something cool out there. And I won't experience it until I decide to at least take a little, toe outside of the comfort zone. Just a toehold. I don't have to step out entirely. Just put the toe over the line a little bit.
Yeah, and if you want to, but people are also, they fear change. Many people who come to see us, either myself or Nina, and the first words out of their mouths is, I want it the way it was. Right now I'm having a hard time dealing with life right now, and 10 years ago I was able to handle this. I want it back the way it was. And what they don't realize is it was because they had a certain attitude pattern 10 years ago. That's why you're where you are right now.
Right.
So if we don't change the attitude, you're going to continue down this road, and things are only going to get worse.
Yeah,
but again, and going through that can be a very painful process. In chiropractic circles, if you've ever seen a chiropractor, because you've got some kind of lingering injury. I mean, you say you hurt your back maybe a few years ago in a car accident or whatever, and you just now decide, I'm going to go to the chiropractor to fix it because, it's really starting to bother me on a continual basis. The first month of chiropractic, you're actually going to feel worse before you start feeling better.
Well, they tell you that when you get there.
Right. And it's true because we now have to, your body is so used to being in that bad situation that is starting to feel comfortable. So now you're going to need to feel, in order to feel better, you need to feel bad.
Right.
And a lot of clients are like, I'm coming to you to feel better. So what's up with this? And something else I tell clients who come to see me is, when they're dealing with a pattern that's been going on for a very long time, you're probably going to feel bad for a while. You don't come to a SRT person, you don't come to a therapist to feel good right away. It's not like I'm going to be hand you a drug to make you feel better.
Yeah, it's not a quick fix.
It's not a quick fix. In fact, you are going to feel worse before you feel better. You will feel better in the long run.
Yeah.
By the time we are finished, we're going to make things okay. But in the short term, we're going to probably make you feel worse.
It's like when you first start exercising. Like, it's going to suck. You're going to be breathing heavy. You're going to be sore. But in the end, you're going to feel better.
That's right. Exactly.
So let me also take the counter end of that argument for a moment and say, do you have to? Do you have to feel miserable before you get better? Because I would say, no, you really don't have to.
No, you don't have to.
We tend to very often.
Yeah.
The stuff that we go to a therapist for or an SRT practitioner or a coach or whatever is usually the stuff that's eating us up alive. And it's eating us up alive because we're just intently focused on it. So if we're that intently focused, it's going to take a little while to reverse that momentum just because we're so intently focused on it. But once we change that focus and stick to changing that focus, however way we get there, whether it's through SRT, coaching, therapy, whatever, once we start reversing it, then it's going to start feeling better. So really what it comes down to is this: how quickly are we going to start focusing the other way around, focusing on what it is that we prefer? That's what all these strategies are about from my perspective. And I hear people sometimes criticize the kind of thing we're talking about here, saying, well, you're really going about the long way around. Just go inside and, just focus on what you prefer. You're making too big of a deal out of it. But by the same token, somebody who has been going to a therapist or a coach because this is eating them up alive. I mean, they've been living this for so long. It's all they know, Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like saying, why don't you just change your entire behavior pattern right now?
Yeah.
Not a piece of it, the entire one, the whole panoply of everything that you do. Just change that right now.
Yeah.
And I challenge anyone to do that. I don't care how high your vibration is. I don't know anyone who can do that.
No.
Yeah, I made a comment on a Facebook. There's a Facebook forum for SRT practitioners, and there was this person who is just learning how to do SRT, and he asked the question: if I do this every day for 20 years, am I going to be like this totally ascended person? And my comment to him was, well, yes, in a way, because for the first few months of doing this every day, yes, you're going to be able to get to those surface level things. But there is going to come a time where your subconscious is not going to want to work on certain items because there's going to be blocks. There's going to be things that your subconscious doesn't want to work on. And you're going to know that there's a problem. The pendulum is going to tell you there's a problem, but it's not going to tell you what the problem is because your subconscious is going to block it. And that's when you need to find somebody else to come along, to another SRT practitioner, some other life coach who's going to help you see that, because they're going to be able to see it from a third party perspective, and they're not going to have all that emotional baggage that it's attached to whatever it is you're feeling or whatever it is you're blocked on. They're just going to see it. And they're going to say, okay, this is what you need to work on. And maybe your first impression is going to be like, no, they're full of crap. I'm just, you don't know me.
Sure.
But I've never come across that with my clients. Usually when I point something out like that, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. You are so right. That is, I can't believe that I didn't see that before. And it's because your subconscious didn't want to see it.
Yeah, that's true. And it's the challenge. I mean, I guess the answer to the question in short terms, the question of, well, can I get this done in 20 years or how long is it going to take is, well, how long is it going to take for you to let go of what you're hanging on to? Tell me the answer to that and I'll tell you how long it's going to take for you to get to that ascended position.
Right. Yeah. And when people often ask me, how many treatments is this going to take? And I tell them, it's going to take how long it takes.
Yeah.
This is where I think there's a lot of value in, we're talking a little bit about extreme cases because we're talking about people who are in such pain they need to go get help from somebody. And certainly there are plenty of people in that boat. There are also a lot of other people who aren't necessarily in that boat, but they have things that they're hanging on to that they really shouldn't be hanging on to, that maybe at some level they understand they shouldn't be hanging on to, and they're still trying to let go of it. They're still trying to, okay, I know this behavior pattern really doesn't serve me at all, but I just can't seem to let go of it. How do you let go of something? How do you do that? And so you get yourself all tangled up in a knot about that. But I guess my point is, that's all the negative side. That's all the unpleasant, the unpreferred side. If you look at the preferred side, this is where the various processes come into play. This is where meditation comes into play. It's where affirmations come into play. It's where vision boards and 5x55s and all the other different processes you can do. It's where they all come into play because they are about training us to take control of our own subconscious minds without the intermediary of a coach or a therapist or a practitioner or whatever. It's us doing that work. And that's the part I really wanted to get to in the show, because that's where we have the most power. When we take the time to learn how to basically be in control of who we are, that's when we have the biggest opportunity to overcome resistances, to overcome blocks, to overcome interferences. because now we're the ones doing it. It's like we've been taught how to fish. We're not being handed a fish anymore.
Right.
It's interesting because when I see clients for the first time, and I had a lot of first-time clients this past weekend, and the first thing I do is I do the first surface level blocks, what's on the miscellaneous chart. And for half of them, Follow a Savior came up as one of their miscellaneous blocks. And I would say, that's me. Because you are coming to me looking for me to fix your problem. That's an illusion. We're going to get rid of that.
No wonder I'm not seeing a halo. Now I understand. It's an illusion.
It's an illusion. There you go.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing. I'm glad that you do that, because I think that the best coaches and therapists and so forth want their clients to heal themselves as fast as they can. They need help, but they don't want to be the one who says, okay, you've come in with one illness, I'm going to give you 10. They want to be the ones who you come in with 10, I've reduced it to 1 or 0.
Right. And actually, I have a client yesterday. We just finished our 5th session, and at the end of the session, I was like, okay, we're ready to reduce now. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, we're ready to reduce now. We'll see each other next week, and it'll be half an hour rather than the hour, because we're now doing up to the follow-up period where you start learning how to do this stuff on your own. And eventually, we'll reduce it to where I'm only seeing her for a half an hour every other week. And then we'll extend it out to once a month, and then once every 6 months. And then at that point, she's okay. If she never sees me again, that's great.
Yeah, that's success.
You've done your work, sir.
You've done the job is done.
The job is done. Yeah, that's where you pat yourself on the back and say, "Boy, I'm really enjoying this work. I'm actually helping people."
Yes. Yeah, I got to say, I love my work.
That's a good thing.
And people come to me with some doozies, and this work is not for everybody. Because there's a lot of people who get into this work who take on the energy, take on the burden of whatever their clients are going through. I don't do that, but I'm just here to help. I'm just here to help guide, and I'm not the healer. I keep saying I am not the healer. You are the healer.
That's true. And
I am just here to.
You're absolutely right that it's not for everybody, even if you're good at it. I've had numerous people, including Linda, by the way, tell me I should be a coach. And I know, well, first of all, I did try doing some coaching a few years back, and I know it's not for me. I can just tell it's not.
Yeah, same.
You have the same thing, Alex?
Yeah, people tell me all the time, you give such good advice. Like, you should be a life coach. And I'm like, I don't even have my own life together. What are you talking about? Right now I'm sitting in my bed having a podcast. Like, no, I'm not going to coach someone else on how to live my life.
I hear you. Well, plus also I realize too that there is a lot you have to learn as a coach.
Yeah.
In order to truly do a good job at it. And I didn't really have the commitment to do that because I realized that wasn't my main thing.
Yeah.
My main thing was not working one-on-one with people in order to help them improve their lives. I don't get the charge out of that I get out of doing a podcast or doing an audio play or some of the other stuff that I'm working on. To me, that's where the big love is.
Agreed.
So when Bill says it's not for everybody, I think I agree with that. And I would add to it, it's not for everybody because you have to follow what you love.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You have to be doing what you love. And if you aren't loving it, then it's not, I don't care what anybody else says. It's not the right career for you.
Exactly.
So start with what you love. And that alone could take a while. Just practicing. Okay. So what do I love? I don't love anything. Well, now you got to start trying some things. Just try this one. Nope, don't like that one. Try this one. Nope, don't like that one. Until you find something that you love.
Yep.
All right.
Because once you find that, boy, it's a lot easier to stay in vibration.
Everything's gravy in the Navy after that.
The alignment becomes so much easier when you find what you love. So, well, good guys. This has been a good conversation. Bill, thanks for coming up with the topic. I think we've taken it far beyond the playground.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we barely even touched the playground. We were there, but we didn't hang out there because we did find it's all over the place. But hopefully, our listeners come away from it realizing that if they have any kind of background with either being a victim or being a bully, they feel empowered, hopefully. Hopefully they feel like they can actually take some steps to change that. And even more than that, I'm kind of hopeful that they want to take the steps. Because we kind of talked about that. You have to want it. You have to be willing to climb out of that comfort zone. So maybe we've opened it up enough that at least one or two listeners will say, you know what, I'm done with the comfort zone. I'm out of here.
Yeah, be like Frozen. Let it go.
Yeah, exactly. So good stuff. Hey, before we go, Alex, I know that you aren't doing the spoiler alert podcast anymore, but any spoilers you want to tell people about?
Yes, do watch Euphoria on HBO. Do watch. And also, if you're a fan of Dynasty, and it's not on right now because we're on hiatus, Grand Hotel is a good substitute.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, yes, those two shows. And I'm like living for The Bachelorette right now.
Yeah, it seems like according to the news, everybody's living for that right now.
Oh my God. I've never watched it before in my life, but I can't handle what is happening.
Apparently The
Bachelor so ridiculous. We could do a whole Law of Attraction episode on The Bachelorette. It's insane.
Yes, it is. I agree with that. I especially agree with the last part.
Yeah. But that what makes it so funny is because it's so ridiculous.
And Bill, I know you've already filled up your schedule, but I thought I'd give you a chance to let people know anyway about how to find you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always open for new clients. You can find me, best way to contact me is email. It's Bill, B-I-L-L, at ninag.com, ninagee.com. I'm also running a promo right now where you can contact me through text. My phone number, my cell number is 215-582-3539. Text the word freedom to that. That way I know that you heard the podcast and that, you're not spamming me.
All right. Good news.
You do get that. I mean, we can talk a whole thing about spammers and phishing and stuff like that too, because I get plenty of that as well.
That may be the topic next week. You'll have to tune in next week just to find that out. But thank you guys. Thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
See you later.